Back to you, Barbara Starr with CNN.
General Townsend, to go back to Joe's question on Baghdadi, you were definitive. You said you think he's alive. So you believe he's alive. So can you elaborate a little bit at the end of your tour here, because you're leaving, what makes you come to the conclusion he's alive? Does that suggest you know where he may be, even if you can't tell us? And you also seem to be fairly definitive that the orders are first to kill. Capture if you can, but you'd rather see him killed. So is that the orders your troops are, basically operating under?
Okay, Barbara, thanks for the question. I seem to remember my last Pentagon press conference when you were very interested also in Baghdadi's whereabouts and what we were going to do with him then. This is apparently a hobby of yours, Barbara. So, look, I really don't know where he is. I think this is the same answer I gave last time. I really don't. Do I believe he's alive? Yes. Why? Because I've seen no convincing evidence, intelligence or open source or other rumor or otherwise, that he's dead. So, therefore, I believe he's alive. There are also some indicators in intelligence channels that he's still alive. Where is he? I don't have a clue. He could be anywhere in the world for all I know. Here's what I think. I think he's somewhere in Iraq and Syria. I think he's probably somewhere in the middle Euphrates River Valley. Remember, I think the Secretary of Defense said it last week or so, and I said it just a few minutes ago. The last stand of ISIS will be in the middle Euphrates River Valley. That's where they believe their last sanctuary is. So I think he's probably somewhere down there. That's just an educated guess made after, doing this for a year and scratching off a hole. He's not in Mosul. He's not in Tel Afar. I don't think he's in Raqqa anymore. So just kind of reducing the list of possible places where he could be, I kind of conclude he's in the MERV somewhere. We're looking for him every day.
I could follow up. So my question as a reporter to you...
Go ahead.
My question as a reporter to you is, you have just said you do have intelligence indicators he's alive. So that informs what you said is your guess. You do have reason to believe as a commanding general.
Yes, I said I thought he was alive.
And my question to follow that up, when you say you believe he's likely in the middle Euphrates River Valley, you had said to Michael Gordon that you are working on deconfliction with the Russians in advance there, if I understood you correctly. Could you expand a little bit? When you say deconfliction, we have mostly understood that to mean air operations in the near term across Syria, sort of on a day-to-day or an operational basis. Is this now a different type of deconfliction discussion you're having with the Russians in advance? Are you sort of dividing up the areas in the middle Euphrates River Valley where you're going to operate? It seems a bit different, but perhaps I'm misunderstanding you.
Okay, so prior to about February, the deconfliction that we were doing with the Russians was done exclusively by our Air Force, Air Forces, Central Air Forces, and they were talking to the Russians to deconflict air operations, starting with the convergence of the flots that I mentioned earlier around Al-Bab in February. We saw suddenly the need for a ground component for that. We started thinking about how to go about doing that, and we started looking to get the resources. We had to have some special telephone lines, and we had to find the right interpreters. We kept working on that kind of slowly. This became a real priority in the May time frame with the convergence of these forces again south of Tabqa, as I previously mentioned. It was there in the convergence of forces around Tabqa where we understood there is definitely a ground component to this deconfliction. And if we want to avoid inadvertent clashes. Linking up on the battlefield with another friendly element, known friendly element that you actually have a link-up plan with, is a very dangerous operation. Well known in our military that it's difficult to link up with someone while in contact with the enemy, and especially in the dark. So it gets even tougher when you have a force that may be something other than friendly, not necessarily an adversary, but something other than friendly, and you don't have great communications with them, and you don't have an agreed upon plan. Well, then you add the enemy there, and it becomes fraught with friction. So we knew we had to have this deconfliction system, and we have now acquired that at the CJTF headquarters. So now there's 2 nodes for deconfliction with the Russians. The Air Force, the air component has their node, and we now have a node here at the CJTF headquarters, so we can do that. So I think that it becomes almost a daily fact of life. In fact, we probably talk to the Russians between the air component and my headquarters. We talk to the Russians. Somebody's talking to the Russians multiple times a day to deconflict our operations. So I think we've got the system in place we need to do it, and it's just a fact of life as we operate in greater proximity to each other in the Middle Euphrates River Valley.
Can I just make sure I understand? Have you already established your deconfliction zones in the ERV, or is that still to come? Your deconfliction with the Russians, have you divided it up with them?
Well, remember that I said we've established some measures south of Raqqa, and those measures extend to the east of Raqqa, and since about the middle of June, second week of June, they've held, and we haven't had friction. They've observed the measures we put in place, and we've observed the measures, and our partners have observed the measures we put in place. And the discussions every day really are just to make sure that everybody knows what everybody's doing, and not to trip on each other, really. And that the measures are still in place and we're all observing them. That's kind of how the conversations go. I told you that that we've already established the measures that are in place that go down into the MERV a ways. I won't be more specific than that. And there'll be other discussions when the time comes. We'll work out other measures in the future that'll cover the entire area that needs to be covered.
Now, to core